Hello, folks.
Hi there.
I'm very sorry. I don't know why all of a sudden I could open the meeting and I wasn't able to before. It's a great mystery.
Things happen.
Things happen. Maybe the 20th time was the charm. But better late than never.
Oh, finally.
Yes, I was really kind of quite disturbed.
I just got to go put my phone back. I was just talking to your husband.
Yeah, that's nice. All right. So is Mary there too? I'm trying to find my agenda.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, give me 1 second to get myself organized because I don't know what happened to everything that I had. So I'm looking for, here we go. This is not the right document. Hang on, it's not the right document. I'm just trying to find my agenda. So give me one, I'm sorry, it's just disappeared on me, which is really not helpful with everybody waiting. My apologies, I'm really.
Not quite all right.
Let me try it this way. Okay, so Mary, you're gonna take minutes for us tonight.
Yes.
It's not an encouraging beginning for us in our new configuration, but what we can do. All right, let me try to find my notes with the agenda. Here we go. And we've got the.
You're going to call the meeting to order?
Yeah, I'm going to call the meeting order as soon as I know what I'm doing here. All right. All right. I do not have the full, my full updated agenda, so we'll call meeting to order. It's 7:16. And so first thing on our agenda, I think we'll push to the back the meeting minutes consideration because we're late for the public hearing for the RDA for the fire station. And who do we have here for the fire station public hearing? And do we have anybody? No, we don't.
Nice.
Janice, hi.
Hi.
I don't know if we can go forward with the public hearing if we don't have the proponents. We don't have. What do you think we should do?
Yeah. I mean,
we go forward with it.
they got some kind of notice with the agenda and Zoom link.
Yeah, they probably got confused because they couldn't log in. So has everybody had a chance to take a look at the plans for this and the site? We were all at the site visit, so we're familiar with what the project involves. So this is the paving of the fire department, and we found wetlands to the, I believe, the east of the property. Is that what I'm recalling?
West for sure.
West.
Was it west? Was west?
It was west where I went into the
right.
Yeah.
So I looked over, there was an RDA that had been approved 4 years ago, until 2017. And so I looked over what were the conditions for that. And I can pull those up for us if you want to take a look at them. Is that something folks want to take a look at?
What was that for?
That was for the same thing. They never did the paving. They had an approved RDA back in 2017. They just never did the work. So the conditions were, I could just read them.
Yeah.
Silt fence will be installed as shown on the plan. And as you may recall, the silt fence that was still there is quite damaged.
Right.
And needed to be replaced. Silt fence will serve as a limit of work. No excavated material or removed asphalt will enter the wetland. Parking lot will be graded such that insofar as possible, runoff flows will be directed away from the wetland. And the silt fence will be removed at the completion of the project. And then there was a sixth condition, which was for us to consider inserting square footage of area of lawn at the western side of the lot will stop being mowed and be allowed to regenerate naturally. So I don't have a clear sense personally about how much square footage that would include. Unless we want to say the entire area.
So it's probably good to put all of those conditions on. I don't know about the last one with the mowing, but you guys were out there. Could you get a sense of what area that was meant to be?
Well, there was a large field
Yeah.
on the west side. And then there's the tree line, and my recollection was that the wetlands were beyond the tree line. Isn't that right?
Or at along the side, but then somewhere else and back.
And it
too.
was what, about 75 feet? So
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
it's probably on the site visit form.
On the
Oh.
site visit form, it says about 71 feet from the edge of the paving.
71 feet.
Okay. Don has his hand raised.
Yeah, Don, go ahead.
I wanted to mention that there are 2 locations in Shutesbury where wood turtles have been located. One of them is in the ZF-15 area behind my home. The second one is the fire station wetland.
Oh.
The gas station or gas tank leak that was there, and that soil was excavated. A great deal of material leached into the wetland at the time and sort of transferred down through the system. I would like to see this time further protections to that wetland in the form of an erosion sock in front of the silt fence that is erected. If the silt fence is nothing more than hay bales, that actually is a barrier to the wood turtles, which are right now in the middle of their reproductive cycle, laying eggs. I think that the sock, if placed correctly along that that vegetated filter strip that you've got going on, probably could redirect the turtles a lot better than a silt fence would.
Hmm.
Just my advice.
What do other people think?
Would that be the same if they don't do this project right away? Don?
I think that the reproductive time for these turtles probably lasts sometime into July. I wouldn't imagine that it goes any longer than that. Once it gets dry there, that wetland dries down to nothing but muck. At that point, I mean, if they went into July or August to do this work, I think you could probably pave safely, but again, I'd be more worried about the residues from paving are mostly diesel fuel, kerosene used to clean the equipment with. And that stuff tends to leach readily during a rainstorm, a rain event. Maybe we won't have any rains between now and July, but I would imagine if the work is going to be done, that you need something that's more absorbative than hay bales and silt fence.
Yeah, what they have, there's the, I guess it was a hay bale and the plastic silt fence. That's what they had.
That's actually more of a
Stakes.
barrier to turtles than it is a help to prevent them from being exposed to diesel fuel.
So are you suggesting, Don, that we not have the silt fence? Just
I think you want to get rid of the silt fence and hay bales and just put an erosion sock on the grass filter. That allows the turtles to sort of navigate away from where the paving's going on.
So do you mean like those mulch filled tubes?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think about that?
He's raised some really good points. You know, you can also, I don't know if the fire department has a timeline for when they want to do it, but if you're that concerned, you could set parameters for when you would allow it to be done.
I think they were talking about August, weren't they?
Yeah. When is the end of the reproductive cycle? Don, you're saying into July?
I don't think it would go any further than July. By August, all of these wetlands here are pretty ephemeral and they've dried up to nothing and, you know, they've probably eutrophied and got a bunch of weeds growing in them. I don't think turtles are navigating it at that point. They sort of need that escape habitat, that water that's close by for them to sort of scoot off and get away from things. I would say if you're talking about a timeline, July 15th seems to me to be fine.
So saying construction will not occur before July 15th. To avoid reproductive cycle of what kind of turtles?
Wood turtles.
Okay, so going back to the lawn and the field, do we want to set any conditions regarding it being mowed? We could just say the lawn on the western side of the lot. This was a condition that Penny had been considering back in 2017. So that's the only reason why I'm raising it.
And what does it read again? What was the concern again?
Just to provide more of a filter strip for the wetlands would be to not mow or disturb the lawn, the field.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think there's such a small area there and
Well, it's 71 feet deep. I don't know how long, you know, it's 71 feet wide and who knows how deep. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't, because I was there. I was on the site visit, and trying to imagine mowing that area versus not.
Well, if you
I have
don't
no
mow it, if
problem
you don't
with
mow
not
it,
mowing.
what?
I said I have no problem with the not mowing.
Okay. Well, why don't we just say the field? I don't know if you can call it a lawn. It's not really much of a lawn. The field and on the western side of the lot will stop being mowed and be allowed and left to regenerate and be allowed to regenerate naturally. Does that sound right?
Well, actually, that would prohibit them from getting access to the rear on the west side of the fire building, on the fire department building. I'm looking at Google Earth
Yeah.
Street View, and you can really, the picture was taken October 2019, so it gives you a realistic view of what's out there now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, like you said, about 70 some odd feet from the side of the building to the erosion control line. You've got garage doors on that side. So what size equipment go in and out? What kind of turning circle do they need? If you prohibit that, they may
Oh.
not be able to get vehicles into the building. I think you need to specify how deep Or so you've got the length, but how
Right.
far from the erosion control line to the building do you want
Right.
them to stop?
So let's say if it was 71 feet, well, what if we were to give them, what we say 50 feet? That gives them an extra 20 feet. Does that seem reasonable?
That's up to you all.
Or we could say 30 feet, 40 feet.
Yeah, I actually have no strong opinion on this.
Okay, well, what if we say, a buffer strip of 40 feet along the western side of the lot we'll just say will not be mowed and will be allowed to regenerate naturally.
So that would leave them 30 feet or what?
30 feet? Does that
No,
seem
I'm
low?
just asking. I don't know.
Yeah, that would leave them about 30 feet.
Well, is that enough room for that, get their vehicles inside those garage doors?
I have no idea. Do you
I
wanna-
mean, you know, I think you're better off in a way waiting for the fire department to jump in, because if they're not starting until August, there is plenty of time, and you don't want to have to revisit the issue if the fire department gets upset that they won't have
Right.
enough area to get the vehicles in. They're not going to very much appreciate what you require.
So you're thinking continue the public hearing, Mark, and then,
Well, I'm saying if the fire department, if the chief isn't there, then I think
he's
you're
not
better
here.
off just continuing it to make sure the fire department can live with your additional vegetative buffer requirement.
okay,
To come up with a number both the commission and the fire department can live with.
okay. I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Right.
And we're gonna have a public hearing at our next July meeting for the other projects. So, we can make sure that they come. It's possible if they tried to log in, they gave up because, we were having trouble for the first 15 minutes. So that may be what happened. So why don't we, do we want to have somebody want to make a motion to continue the hearing?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing till next meeting
Okay,
and contact them to attend.
okay, I'll second that. Okay, roll call, such as it is our little group. It's David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, all right, well, that was that. All right, so we have another, what's our time frame right now? It's 7:30, and we have to go to the ANRAD and open the public hearing. So 7:32, we need to go to the public hearing for ANRAD Pratt South. So we've got, is Emily here and Maria are now here?
They're both here.
Yep, hi.
Hi, this is Emily. I don't see Maria up on my screen, but it looks like Matt Regan might be present.
Matt Regan's here. Yep.
Maria's here.
So do you want to give us an update, kind of where
Yeah.
things are at?
Yes, I do. So I have an updated set of plans that I can share on Zoom tonight. I'm sorry that I didn't send them to you yet. We are still waiting on the additional signature that we need, so we can't close tonight anyway.
Okay.
That said, the additional site visit happened. That's part of why I asked Matt to come tonight, because he went on that site walk with Emily. So if you have any questions about what they did at that site walk, then he's really the person to ask, not me. And we also, because we had thought this was going to be the last hearing, or we had hoped that we would have all the signatures and everything by now, we did public notice for this meeting. So I have the certificate of mailing and the proof of the legal ad to send you, Miriam.
Okay, great.
just Mark Stinson's on. So just for some background, this site got expanded because of the ultimate access they wanted to use for the larger project, and it went on to some additional parcels that were owned by other people. So we got new abutters list and
Okay.
re-advertised for that
What's
reason.
the file number on this one you're talking about?
That's an excellent question. Can I tell you that offhand? This is one offhand. Where is it?
And that should, just for the record, Miriam, that should be on the agenda, the file number of any ANRAD or notice of intent you're reviewing.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
been
makes
happening.
things easier to keep track of.
It is easier to keep track of.
Okay. I can dig for it, but I don't have it right handy.
No, that's all right. It's just
Yeah.
a point of information for me. I'll let, her continue going over her review, but sometimes I go to commission meetings and I have no idea what project people are talking about.
Right. Well, this is one of the many that we sent you. One of the ANRADs. This is the one that's on the Shutesbury Pelham border,
Okay,
where Poverty Mountain is.
that's all right. That's all right. Keep going.
The deed.
Maria.
Well, I wanted. There's the plan.
Is it 283 Pratt Corner Road?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's one of the few that the commission hasn't issued the ORAD yet, I think.
No, we have
Yeah,
not.
there's only two that we haven't issued for. yet.
Okay. So looks like it's 2860263 then. Or
Can you say that again,
283.
Liz? 280,
283, it sounds like.
283, is there more to it?
No, 2820283.
Okay. That's the file number?
So Miriam, it's not the post has declared
You want to,
hearing, so can you make it so I can share my plan with you?
yes, I can do that, I think. Okay. Go ahead and try it.
Oh, yes, perfect, thank you. All right. So can everyone see that map now? So this is the overview of the whole site. So down here in red, this was the original survey area that we looked at. And then there's an existing gravel road that comes off of Pratt Corner Road up here that goes through these additional parcels that are owned by the town of Amherst.
That's Dales Road.
Right.
Yeah.
So we delineated the additional portion of Dean's Brook up here and some wetlands that are a little south of the road over here. And those are the things that Emily and Matt looked at during the second site visit. So this dashed red line is the new portion of the study area that was added to this.
Emily, are you going to be sending us some written comments?
Well, I have to send this plan to Emily. So
Oh, okay. She
I'm
hasn't seen it yet.
behind on sending things because I was really hoping I'd have the last signature page to send everyone. And so I'm giving up and I'm just going to send you all what I have instead.
Okay. All right. So should we figure out when we want to schedule this for?
Yeah, well, so part of why I wanted to present this tonight is because we did notice to the abutters. So in case there were any abutters that came to tonight's meeting specifically for this, I wanted to make sure that we talked to them.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yes, we're going to request a continuance because
Is there anybody, are there any abutters here? You want to speak up? Nope. Okay. All right, well, it sounds like there aren't any comments, so let's just move along and let's figure out when you'd like to come back for that. We have, when is our net, we have a meeting on the 8th, is that right?
Yes.
July 8th, and I can look at at the schedule. Is that when you were thinking you might want to do this, Maria?
I would love to do it then. It's, as I said, I'm just going to send what I have out at this point to you and Emily because I don't want that one signature page to hold up Emily being able to send
So what we've got on their agenda is the RDA public hearing for the highway department, for their other projects, and probably also for the fire station. So they have 4 RDAs. I don't know how long that's going to take to go through all 4 of those. I'm wondering, would you feel okay pushing it to the next meeting? Or do you want to do it at like 8 o'clock or 8:30? It's going to be a late night.
I'm happy with a later time.
A different date, you mean?
Well,
Could you,
I should probably just say, let's do it at the next one, which I think is the 22nd,
the 22nd?
which I think we had moved the Montague Carver Road ANRAD to that date. So I think we already have something on there for 7:30. So if we put this one at 8 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, that's fine with me. Anybody else have any comments?
Nope, sounds good.
Fun.
Okay, so somebody want to make a motion to continue to that date?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for the ANRAD at Pratt South to July 22nd.
I'll second it.
Okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont. Aye. Oh, I forgot. I have to talk. And Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right. So we'll close the hearing for now.
Continue it.
Continue the hearing for now, I mean, not close. Thank you, Janet. I'm a newbie. I'll get this right. All right. And you are going to be getting us updated maps for Montague Carver as well.
Yes, because Emily needs to do a change order for the additional area on that site. So
All right.
I will be getting those things to you, and I do apologize for the delay.
Okay. The other thing that I'm seeing on the agenda is a new item for Stockman peer review proposal, but I didn't see a copy of it. Were you going to share that with us, Emily?
Well, she's waiting on the plans for Montague to be able to.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I am behind. I am
Okay.
making everyone else be behind. I'm sorry.
Okay, got that. Okay. All right. Well, then we're done, I think, with that piece. Great. All right. Well, thank you.
No, thank you again. Sorry for the delay.
Okay. So it's almost 7:45, and I got some Brad Foster. So, and I see that we've got Joseph Rogers here, probably wanting to talk about the Pratt Corner parking lot issue. So, we also had somebody who needed to come and talk about a well project, and he's just joined us, Brad Foster. So I think this will be very quick. Hi, Brad. You can unmute yourself. So why don't we go to Brad and deal with that issue, and then we can move on. Talk about the Pratt Corner. So Brad, do you want to explain a little bit to the commission what your situation is?
We have a shallow well. We have some issues with the shallow well, and Board of Health suggests we put a drilled well in. And getting a drilled well in our property, getting any well in our property now is difficult because of the house and the plot and the septic and the wetlands. I just met with Board of Health last night to talk about possible siting. And in order to get it away from the septic, it's moving in the direction of the wetlands. I still think it's a good distance away, but they said I should check with you because of the wetlands. So that's what brings me here.
Okay. So if you're outside of the buffer zone for the wetlands, then it's like not a problem at all for us. But we probably need to set up a site visit to go take a look at what the wetlands are. You think it's closer than 100 feet?
I don't think so. The thing for me is I know where the stream is, but I also know the definition of wetlands is wider than that, and I have no idea at that point. But I still think it's quite far away.
Okay.
What's the address, Brad?
579 West Pelham Road.
Okay, thank you.
And if it turned out that he was within the buffer zone, am I correct that he would have to then submit an NOI? Is that how it works?
No, if he's
No.
just in the buffer, it could be just a simple request for determination.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's a simpler process. So, but first we should just figure out if you even need to do that. So since you're here, can we maybe figure out a time when we could do a site visit?
Sure.
Miriam, I would just say that taking a quick look at that sketch, it looks like he's within 100 feet. If you gauge the 100 feet from the septic tank, the circles they've done, and then you compare the proposed well site to the edge of the property, which says wetlands beyond it. So maybe it's still way beyond the property edge. I don't know, but it could be within the 100. Yeah.
At that property boundary, the southeast corner, the stream part is 125 feet further south. from us.
Okay. Yeah. So it just depends on.
And the wetlands goes, further than that, but that makes it not quite 200 feet from the well site.
Okay.
190 feet,
Mm-hmm.
if I've done my math right.
Okay. Okay. Should we figure this out?
Yeah.
Are you, Brad, do you have time pressures for this? Are you needing to know this like in the next, do you have other
I
things?
think, does Don have a question,
Yeah,
Miriam?
Don?
I just wanted to remind you guys about the last time we looked at a well drilling site and the offset between the septic system and the potential drilling site for the well. It's not just the actual drill site itself, right? It's about 25 feet in a circular area around where the drilling is going to go on, that you're going to end up with tailings and possible runoff water contaminated with those tailings, or in this case, maybe bentonite or something like that, that would travel toward the stream. I think you guys want to set up your date for when you want to do your visit, but you should be aware of the fact that the drill rig is going to be some 40 feet tall when it's erected, and that the drilling area is probably going to be about 25 feet in diameter around that drill site.
Well, Don, can you join us?
It depends on the date that you send, actually.
Because it would be helpful. My schedule's pretty tight until, maybe I could do like late in the afternoon on either next week, like a 4 o'clock time.
On any particular day?
How about you guys?
When did you
I'm
see?
available next week in the afternoon every day. I'm just busy Tuesday and Friday mornings. I have commitments. But I would love to go to Brad's place again. It's been years and years.
Pretty free, so
So want to do Monday? Would that work? What times for what you're working? So
Mondays and Tuesdays are open for me.
oh, that's great. Well, why don't we say,
I'm busy Monday morning, but I'm
Okay.
free all Monday afternoon.
why don't we do Monday, Monday at 4? So everybody can do
Sounds
that?
fine.
Yep.
Great. All right, we will be there. And thanks a
Okay.
lot.
Thanks a lot. I'm the last house in Shutesbury on West Pelham. Just
Okay.
to put a
Okay.
place. Okay, thank you.
All right, see you then. Okay.
So,
All right.
Just one other thing, Miriam, to keep in mind when you're, actually before you go out there, but when you're out there, if it looks like it's Buffin Brook or something, I don't know if that's a perennial stream or not. If it is, then it's a 200-foot riverfront, so
Yeah, I
it
was
could kick
thinking,
in.
I
Yeah,
was thinking about that.
yeah.
Okay. All right, that's complicated. All right, so we're going to jump around a little bit on the agenda, but should we talk about the Pratt Corner parking lot project? Should we go over that?
Yep, that's fine.
Sure.
And we have Joseph Rogers. Is anybody else not, no, there's no one else here for it. Oh, someone else is joining it. So it looks like maybe we have some abutters in the meeting. And I'm wondering if there's any abutters that want to speak before we start talking.
Miriam, could I just say something briefly? I know
Yeah.
Jen Jones, my land steward, just joined and she's having a hard time with audio, so she was going to try to come back into the meeting.
Okay,
I also don't know if Shane was going to join us. I think the email
Okay.
went out and said we would discuss this at 8, and I'm not
Okay.
sure if he was going to try to meet with us at 8 or not.
yeah, I see Jennifer Jones. She's muted, but she is here.
I'm here. I just had to
Hi.
pull my parking area.
Hi there.
Hi.
Welcome. Okay, well, we want to hear, and we've got, I'm sorry, so we've got a few people who want to talk, and I will want to give you guys, Joseph and Jennifer, an opportunity to describe to us what the project involves. Do you want to, just to kind of summarize how this all came about, I brought this to the Conservation Commission's attention because I'm in a butter. And so while I'll facilitate this discussion, if we're going to make any votes about anything, I'm going to recuse myself from voting because I'm in a butter.
We are not going to have a quorum because that leaves only
Yeah,
me
we
and
won't have
Mary.
a quorum. Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Under those circumstances, can we use the rule of necessity?
I would check with Donna before you claim it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you may need to file one of those self-acknowledgement or whatever, potential conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest things.
Okay. So we can have a discussion. I don't think we'll be able to have any final decisions because of that. I'm sorry about that. Well, and I'll reach out to Donna to get some clarification about that. Rob, you're raising your hand. Did you want to say something?
Rob Kibler, Pratt Corner Road. I just wanted to identify myself as an abutter.
Okay. Did you have a comment you wanted to make?
No.
Okay. Michael, did you want
Yeah.
to say something?
I was going to answer your question. I'd love to have comments, but after the presentation would be
Okay.
more helpful.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead, Joseph and Jennifer, and give us some information, and then we can have a conversation.
Miriam, did you get those maps that we sent over?
We did get those maps.
It might be possible to show those so that people have some idea of what we're
Right.
talking about, but if you
Well,
want,
If you
I
want,
can give a brief description of the property, how DFW became involved, and then what we're, doing on that site.
if you want to share, I can pull them up, but if you want to share them, you have sharing privileges.
Sure, I might be able to do that. Let's see. I'm not sure
Can
if
I
I have
just-
them on this computer.
Joseph, can I just ask what DFW is?
So my name is Joe Rogers. I'm with the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. I'm the
Okay,
Valley
officials.
District Manager. Yep.
Okay.
Joining me this evening is Jennifer Jones. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Jen.
Sure, I had to take myself off mute. Sorry about that. I'm the stewardship biologist for the Valley District with the Fisheries and Wildlife. So I'm it's a little more than land management, but that's probably the closest description.
Okay, great. All right.
So we basically manage, for those that don't know who the Division of Fish and Wildlife is, we manage all fish and wildlife, all species, including heritage species throughout the entire state. Jen and I work in one of 5 district offices. Our main office is in Belchertown, Massachusetts. I have about 37 wildlife management areas that I manage, and probably another 23 wildlife conservation properties as well, spread throughout the Connecticut Valley. As I said, it's about 1/5 of the state that we manage. Over the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 years, we've been purchasing properties at the Division of Fish and Wildlife and amassed about 250,000 acres that we own in fee. As part of those properties that we purchase, we also purchase what's called a conservation easement, or a conservation restriction is what they're commonly called in other states. So the difference between a land that we buy in fee and a conservation restriction is when we buy a property in fee and we make it a wildlife management area, it's owned by the state. When we buy a conservation restriction, the underlying property is still owned by the landowner, and we purchase essentially the development rights on that property. So it can't be developed. There are usually defined some very specific things that can be done, like forestry, but our interest there is to maintain the land in a natural state, and to protect the species that are on the property there. So the property that we're discussing today is one of the most recent wildlife conservation easements that we purchased. We bought this land from Coles. I don't know if you guys saw it in the news here recently, but it was closed on within the last year. So we recently bought this land, and as part of that, Jen and I will go through those properties and try to identify if there are going to be any public access issues or land use issues down the road that might become problematic. One of the common ones that we identify on new properties is usually illegal vehicle access. So we don't want people driving onto these conservation properties just willy-nilly wherever they'd like to go. And so commonly the landowner will have access points to their property, and what Jen and I will usually do is go through that property and try to identify those, and at least make it so that when the public comes to those conservation restriction or conservation easement properties, it's kind of clearly defined where they can park and where they can access the property and where they can use those properties. The conservation easements, the wildlife conservation easements, are all open to the public. And so it's kind of a change in the land use, right? So it used to be privately owned, and this particular parcel is actually posted. And it's going to be transitioned into an area that will be open to the public, and a conservation property in perpetuity. So as part of that, one of the areas that we identified is a former landing on Pratt Corner Road that Coles had utilized for forestry on this particular parcel. And we are afraid that folks are going to utilize it inappropriately and park their vehicles up into the actual parcel that we don't want them to be parking in. So what we will commonly do in those sites is we'll either construct a gate. There's another conservation restriction that's been on the ground for quite a while, just to the north of this property, that you might be familiar with. And in those sites, we've usually put a gate up and or boulder off an area that we can define for the public, and the public can utilize that without destroying the natural resources that we're trying to protect on the site. So this particular site has a fairly large forestry landing that, again, Jen and I, that we are looking at and afraid is going to be misused by the public.
We also don't want 40 cars there at one time. So we're trying to not restrict public access, but encourage reasonable use. Yeah. So not 40 cars at a time during hunting season. We'd like to see less than 10. So.
Yeah.
Michael, you look like you have your hand raised.
I do. Just for clarification, I guess if you guys can define what a forestry landing is, and I think, Joseph, you said you had a map. If you could share that, that would be really helpful to know where you're talking about.
So a forestry landing is a term used for an area where, when you're foresting an area, you usually bring those materials to a particular site. They'll be processed, whether they're cut to certain lengths and loaded, or they can be milled up if it's a milling operation. So that landing is usually close to a road, and it's usually set up so that large equipment can get in and out of that. So you'll go out into the woods with, specialized equipment, you'll pull the forestry materials up to a particular site, and then you'll process them on the site. So that's what that landing is. It's usually something that's been, flattened. It may have had materials deposited there, gravel and things brought in to make it suitable for large equipment. So essentially it looks like, it's not a paved parking area, but to somebody off the street driving by, they're going to look at it and think like, there's an area I can park safely because, well, they were constructed so you can put vehicles on them. But as I said, what typically happens if we leave these unattended to is folks will drive into those, and, people with smaller vehicles will stay on that landing. But people who have, larger vehicles or ATVs will more often than not kind of, continue to drive off those landings down into the forests. And that's what we are trying to prevent, is we don't want folks just driving wherever they feel they want to go. That would be illegal. And we have regulations against that. So this is basically to keep the public where the public should be and make it obvious, the areas that they can access and where they shouldn't be. So we'll do that through this bouldering and through some signage that may eventually go to that site.
So
And
can you
would
share
you-
the map?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Would you be putting in like a gravel layer?
Yeah, and I can describe that a little bit. Yeah, if you want, there's 3 different maps there. There's one that's kind of a larger view. Maybe we could start with that just so folks can orient themselves. And then there's one that's a little bit more zoomed in. And then I can talk a little bit about, what will be done in those different areas.
Is it working?
Nope.
Nope. Let me check the permissions again. I thought I made it so anybody could share. Let's see, advanced sharing. Who can start sharing? Okay. Well, it says you can share. Try it again.
Do this.
I apologize. I was all set to do this, but I didn't expect the class I was teaching to run so late. So
No, it's not working.
Hold on a moment. I might be able to get this going here.
Because if not, I can start looking for it. I didn't have it pulled up.
the one that's the farthest extent is labeled topo. A Walter C. Jones Working Forest, something topo.
Okay. Do you want me to show them? I've got.
Can
I've
anyone
got-
see that?
Oh, you
Yeah.
got it. Okay, great. There you go.
All right. So when I switch screens though, can you still see that map or not?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I can tell what you can or can't see. Okay, perfect. So this is the kind of spread out ortho. To orient yourselves, these are some of the addresses for these particular parcels along Pratt Road. This parcel here is 94 Pratt Road, which comes up, and then folks that might be more familiar with like the Coles solar construction project is like just to the south here.
Yeah.
And then I think this other map is just a zoomed in version for you with the aerial, so it's a little easier to see. So here we have 94 Pratt Corner Road, and then this is continuing. Obviously, north is pointed up.
Yeah.
And what we have just depicted here is that this white area is the current forest landing. So this would be the area that when you walk the soils, they've been disturbed. This is an area where, it looks like there may have been some gravel put down before the forest was pulled, before they actually did the forestry. And that the forest, a lot of times it's a messy process. So there's organic material that's left behind and that decomposes and becomes a new soil layer. But the extent of that is on a scale of something like, 80 feet to 100 feet back, and then probably 120 feet across, just to give you some reference. And I'll kind of zoom down.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of fill.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you guys see versus what I see. So, but yeah, the scale is there at the bottom if you can make it out. This smaller green area, and I don't even know, can you see my cursor? Or am I
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. This smaller green area is what we're looking to delineate as the future area that people will have access to. So the way we would delineate this is we're proposing, the objective is to put a row of boulders across the back here, which are of size about 3.5 feet in size, 3 to 4 feet across, which is large enough that you can't easily push it out of the way with a vehicle, but small enough that we can still push them around with the equipment we have, which is a bobcat. And then the area within this, because like I said, there is some organic materials that are left behind on these landings. A lot of times they'll be soft. And so folks that have smaller vehicles might have a hard time parking in those areas. So we're going to be bringing in some gravel to this area as well, and just kind of, filling in the low spots and grading it in a way that, will be appropriate for folks to be able to pull in and then utilize this conservation easement.
Okay.
The majority of the property, there's a small, it's called the Wheeler Lock parcel, which is kind of this chunk you can kind of see here, which is will be open space that will be accessed from this parking area, as well as, there's a larger parcel as you head to the south here, several hundred acres that can be accessed as well. So to give you an idea, this is about 80 feet across, and this is about 20 feet deep. And we think that this will, be sufficient for maybe 6 to 10 cars, depending on the size and how they park.
10 cars is pushing it, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be an extreme case.
So, Joseph, the concern I had that I shared in the email that I sent to you, because I'm at a butter, I'm pretty familiar with this area. And there's been a lot of wetlands discussion about this area back when the Wheeler Tract was being permitted, because they were originally planning on using Reed Road as their access point, and they had to abandon that because it was determined that there was a large jurisdictional wetland at the base of Reed Road, sort of near Reed Road and number 94, sort of in between number 94 and Reed Road, that fell under the town's wetlands bylaw, and that it was more than 1,000 square feet. And Reed Road was also identified as having characteristics of an intermittent stream wetland, because there's typically at different times of the year, there's running water coming down Reed Road. So, so that was the concern, because a rough estimate, my rough estimate was that it's about 75 feet to the corner of the project area for you. From the edge of that isolated, well, it's not really an isolated wetland, but that vernal pool. And so that was kind of the concern.
So the town bylaw has defined the road itself as a wetland?
Well, I'm not sure that it exempts the distance if it's within 100 feet. Janice, what's your thought about that? You probably have a better understanding of the town bylaw.
You're saying that that the wetland is right next to the road, or what? I'm sorry.
It's very close. Well, the wetland is fairly close to the road, and it's right near
on the other side.
It's right near the edge of number 94's driveway.
Oh, okay.
And number 94's driveway, Michael Suter's driveway, is close to Reed Road.
Oh, okay.
So it's a lot. So that wetland bridges Michael Suter's property and the owners of that little section.
Yeah, the buffer zone will cross the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still counts as part of the buffer zone.
And Shutesbury has a bylaw where the 100-foot buffer zone is a no work resource area. It's treated, the buffer zone is treated as a resource area.
No, I guess I'm just confused about the defining this as a wetland. Only because we walked this property, we've delineated wetlands in the past. Jen and I have a lot of experience doing that. We also hired a third party who went through this property when we bought it to identify all wetlands. As I said, Division of Fish and Wildlife, our statutory requirement is to manage for all wildlife. And so when we buy these properties, it's important for us to be able to identify all the habitats that are on them and manage for those species. So we did a thorough walk of the property. We did identify some flagging of a wetland that was a couple 100 feet this direction.
Right.
And then of course, I don't think my LiDAR is up on this one, but we use the LiDAR to identify there are, wetlands to the north, as well as, if you travel far enough south, there are wetlands there as well.
Well, the vernal pool that I'm referring to, I know that Michael Sewer at one time was considering certifying it, that he had documented wood frogs and fairy shrimp. It's clearly holding water for several months of the year, and now everything's kind of dried up, but you can see the remains of the vernal pool. That's pretty clear.
Miriam, can I jump in?
Yeah, Michael.
I would also just suggest that you guys.
Wait, somebody's got some noise.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to mute, and I can't get.
Thank you.
I would also just recommend that you look at the planning board notes from the 2015-16 Wheelock public hearings, because there was a lot of discussion, as Miriam said. Initially, the developers wanted to go in to the solar development up Reed Road, and it was determined that there was enough time where there is active wet land. There's a stream that comes right down Reed Road. And I think both the developer and the town had consultants looking at that, and they obviously changed the entranceway for that. So there's documentation that you can reference that's in the files.
Yeah, I think Emily Stockman delineated it. And Michael Suter's not here, the landowner, but we certainly, I took a walk down the road and just took a look, and you can see it from the road pretty clearly if you look into the trees.
I think you have a question from Don too.
Don, yeah, go ahead, Don.
I just wanted to reiterate that as recent as 2018 and 2019, I worked with the foresters for National Grid along the roadside in this particular area, and we did avoid wetlands in those areas. I'm sorry, Joseph, but your people may have walked the area, but they didn't ground truth the area. The GIS layers from DEP do not show these wetlands at all. And in fact, you have to know that they're there because we're in the middle of a drought. And yet again, Coles is having project work done in an area, delineations done in an area where there's a drought going on. As recent as this spring, we did a building project, a BPA for Miriam through the Concom. Mary David and I attended, and there was standing water with wood frogs as well as fairy shrimp. So if you want to just call these areas ephemeral, that's fine. The area across the road where you want to build your lot is certainly upland, and I would not consider it connected across the road. However, it's come to my attention that there is drainage pipe and culverts across the road in that area, and that needs to be investigated, and I would recommend that you guys do an RDA.
Where are the culvert pipes that you're talking about? The drain?
There's a culvert that's about midway on number 78's property.
Yeah.
And that culvert is connected to a wetland that crosses through my property. I have a large wetland that crisscrosses my property and drains under the road.
Yeah, that flows to the north, correct?
Yes.
Up to the river.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And that's probably well over 100 feet away. So that is probably not relevant, except to show that there are a lot of wetlands in this area. It's a very wet area. I guess what I'm wondering about is, and we can, again, it's hard because I can't make a decision. I can't vote on this, but the question I would pose to Mary and Robin is, do you want to arrange a site visit, maybe with a third person, perhaps Janice would join, and then make a decision whether or not we want to recommend an RDA?
I would be happy to go on a site visit.
Yeah, that seems the most reasonable, to go take a look at it and actually see what we're all looking at.
Yeah,
Um,
there's, I'm a neighbor too, Andrea. Hi, nice to meet you.
you want to say what your address is, Andrea?
Oh, 69 Pratt Corner Road.
Andrea
Um,
Cummins.
My dog, I take my dog for a walk, swims in a little wet area right on Randy and Rogers plot. What's that plot?
They're 78.
Number 78, yeah. There's like a little wet area there, and it kind of goes into a whole long strip of mud and stuff that he always plays in, which I don't really like, but
Yeah,
it's
but
wet.
you're talking about the drainage ditch probably along the road.
Yes,
Yes.
but there's one big area, like vernal pool, that he plays in.
Yes, that's connected to our property. Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's on our, it is on their property and ours. So how would that feel to you, Joseph?
Michael has a question
Okay,
before.
Okay,
Michael?
we'll schedule and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, I guess, how would that seem to you, Joseph?
We could talk to Shane, we would have to talk to the landowner. As I said,
Sure.
we are not the landowner on this parcel, but I don't think we would have any issue with Concom coming out to do a site
Okay,
visit.
great.
I'd have to check with him first.
Yeah, Rob, you want to say something?
Yeah, part of that wetland that Miriam was talking about is actually on town property.
Oh.
It's on the right of way for Pratt Corner Road.
Oh, yeah.
Also, to the north of where that landing is, there is a significantly sized wet area. I believe it's more than 200 feet from the landing zone, but not a whole lot more. And that, I used to hike that land up until 2016. And except during extreme drought, there was always standing water. And I would think that that should be mapped as a wetland. Whether or not the cutting they did 2 years ago has completely changed that wetland to be a dried out area, I can't say. But I can say that as recent as 5 or 6 years ago, if you went out there in July and August, you would see standing water at approximately the same elevation as the landing. Like I said, it's a bit over 200 feet from the landing, but not much more.
Okay.
Yeah, the town buffer is still 100 feet in Shutesbury, right? They didn't extend that beyond the 100-foot buffer zone.
You talking about the wetlands bylaw?
Right.
Just 100.
It's 100 feet. And it's for wetlands that are 1,000 square feet or more. And it's possible that wetland is not 1,000 feet, though I think others had at wetter times in the past delineated it as being a jurisdictional wetland under our town bylaw, because that was the discussion back in 2015, 2016. Michael, you want to say something?
Yeah, a bunch of things actually. So I don't know if this was supposed to be noticed, if this is the kind of project that's noticed or not, but this is the first I've heard of this. I guess Joseph and Jennifer, what I would say is personally, I like wildlife and fish, but you're walking into a situation where I think a lot of us who are neighbors have been fighting development. So when they put in the solar project, we had semis down our road for months. And the solar project did not create happy feelings. And that landing that you're talking about was used as a pull off for semis every day. So that's why we're paying attention. I guess I have some fundamental questions, and I apologize. I'm on the planning.
Can I just make a comment to that? I mean,
sure.
That's a very valid point. I don't want this group to think that we're not, understanding of the project that just happened on this particular parcel. The reason that it's been purchased and why we are involved is to make it conservation land forever.
Well,
and the only reason we're doing what we're doing now is to ensure that things like what just happened during this last construction project can never happen again.
Yeah.
Well,
So
but let me jump in.
It's not a new parking area that we're proposing. We're literally trying to repair the issues that are there now and make sure that moving forward, this doesn't, continue to be a problem for the
Right.
local.
Well, I guess I would push back on that, Joseph, because the conservation area that Coles sold the rights to for the state, there's carve outs. And so they're doing solar developments in carve out areas in that. So, the sentiment that it's in earnest, all conservation area is not what the developer and the landowner are about. So
Yeah.
but that aside, I guess the two things I'm wondering about is in the land that's not carved out, that's conservation. Are you suggesting that there's going to be an entranceway to conservation area up Reed Road, which is new to me? If it is going to be up Reed Road, that would be the logical spot. But if it's not on Reed Road, I don't know why that would be there. I guess that's one question. The second observation, since several of us live on the road, since 2015-16, except for the semis that park there, no one parks there. So your suggestion that people are pulling off and using the land, it doesn't happen. So if it's not going to be a trailhead parking, there's no real reason to put down gravel. Boulders is great. If you want to put down boulders so semis can't pull in there when they do the next solar development, I would be thrilled, but I don't think we need gravel because it's not being used for anything. And if there's no trailhead, and the last thing I would just say, at least for now, I'm trespassed. So I'm not allowed to go there. And in the other conservation on the other end of town, also owned by Coles, also conservation, as far as I know, I'm still trespassed from talking to their land lawyer. So it'd be interesting to clarify if now that you guys are operating it, even though you own it, if people who are trespassed are untrespassed. But I'd really like to answer some of those questions, like where's the entrance to this land? And
Okay, well, I want to move this along because we've got a few more other things we have to talk about tonight, but let's let Joseph respond to that.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, this is I find this a good thing that, the land.
If done right.
Yeah, I mean, it's much better that it be in this kind of conservation easement than being turned into subdivisions, for example. So not that anybody's going to build a subdivision up here, but they could, I guess.
Well, not anymore.
Anyway, so Joseph, do you want to answer his question and maybe we can wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the comments, and it's always good to hear from our butters and to understand, the property and what it's been used and the history behind this particular parcel is, has its issues, we can say the least. The only reason that we believe that there's going to be an increase in use is because the property is currently posted and was never advertised to the public as being open to the public. Whereas now that there's a conservation restriction that the Division of Fish and Wildlife owns on it, you can log onto our website and see all those properties. So people who are looking for places to go birding or hiking or want to get into the outdoors will log onto our website and see that this is one of the properties that they can go to and visit. So the use on the property is going to change now that we've purchased it. And so that's the reason for us to do this exclusion and to provide an area for the public, for them to have access to that. I think that was one of your questions, like, why do we think the use is going to be different? And it's predominantly because the first stage is for us to create some areas for people to park. And then the next phase will be for us to market as a conservation easement property so that the public will know that this is a site that they can go to. And so we've always seen, we anticipate, and we see on all our properties a change in the amount of use. And what I'm trying to prevent, I would be remiss if we left this in the state it is and just allowed people to pour in, because you will start to see folks utilize these, more moving forward.
Can I ask one just follow-up question? And I appreciate your answer, Miriam. I'm sorry. For the conservation area in the north of town off Montague, I don't believe it's gravel. I mean, part of it is that we now have an industrial solar plant in the woods. And so what some of us are objecting to, because we live in Shutesbury, which is in the woods, is to have this encroachment of an industrial feel. So if you're throwing down gravel, even though it stabilizes the ground. So I'm wondering, is there alternatives that feel less, heavy duty in nature that you could consider that, protect the land, but don't sort of change the character of it?
Commonly, we put crushed stone in. That's what we do
Okay.
on most of these sites. That's what we do on our own areas, and that's what we do on a lot of these conservation restrictions.
We even upped it up a hair this one where we got washed stone so that there were no fine particulates to wash away anywhere. Like we actually upped it a little bit because we had the ability to do so to make it even cleaner so that there wasn't any foreign soils being brought in at all. It gets complicated. If you want it more natural, then you're also bringing in the opportunity for invasive species. You're bringing in that's my biggest worry. If we were to bring loam in and grass it, you'd end up with invasive species, and then we do pesticiding to get that air. Gravel is a much less invasive situation in that. Like parking, the problem with parking areas is that cars bring in invasive species. In this way, I can just go, if anything manages to pop up in there, pull it out. That's my biggest worry here. I'm sad because
I was also going to add
ahead,
that the roadway itself, Pratt Road is a gravel-based crushed stone regrade. I mean, you drive it in the spring is a very different experience than when you drive it, on the dry seasons like now. So the intent of this area would look similar to that road, scape, in that it would blend into that environment and feel like an extension of that, to where you could just pull in and be out of the roadway itself.
Okay.
We don't have any intention of this being, a paved parking area, or to look, a sore thumb sticking out as you say. It's not, our intention is never to create any kind of an industrial looking, parking area. We want it to look as natural and be as natural an experience for people.
Okay. I want to, I see Rob Kibler's got his hand raised, and I think maybe we might want to move the discussion. Oh, and Janice does. Let's have Rob and Janice, then maybe we can make a plan and move on to next items. Rob?
First, I think given the number of constraints you're dealing with, putting that landing where you cited is probably the best choice, because moving uphill or downhill, you run into more wetlands or tight property lines. And honestly, that landing zone is already trashed and an eyesore. So doing something with it is a very good idea. In terms of the use, I drive by the other access points on the land to the north. And in the years that has been an access point, I don't think I've ever seen more than 3 cars there at a time, and that includes during hunting season. In terms of protecting the species in that area, I think that's a great idea. I don't know if the population of brook trout is still alive and well in Nurse Brook, or the native tribe have died off. They used to be there. So I like it where it is. I would just like to see it put in accordance with the local regulations on buffer zones.
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
Okay, Janice?
2 quick things. One, I thought Michael had a good idea about checking the Wheelock property maps that may show something in terms of wetlands for this area. And I'm wondering, Michael, if you can get your hands on it to be able to do like a snip or something, since the Concom is so understaffed at this point. If you could, if you could clip a section for them so they could see it, and rather than having to go into the office and try to go through all the files to find it and then pick a picture or whatever. The second thing was that I don't know this end of town at all, and it sounds like Don does. So I would think it'd be better if Don were available to go with you guys there, because it sounds like he's been up and down that road with the utility work and everything, and is more familiar with it than I am.
Well, that's true. I mean, Don, it'd be great to have you come. Don won't be able to go on the property per se, because he's also trespassed.
Okay.
But Don certainly can look at the other wetlands that are across on the south side of the road, and maybe assist the commissioners. Janice, do you think you could join them?
Okay, sure.
I'd hate to. I mean, I'll come along for the ride, but I'm not going to be actively be participating in the site visit, because again, I'm in a butter. I'll leave it up to you guys to make a decision.
Yeah, and Janice, in terms of your suggestion,
Yeah.
it's a terrible time that Tessa left.
Yeah.
So I haven't been in town hall and, since it was closed, although I think it's opening up in the next couple, maybe next week. I think I would check with Jeff or Deacon since
Okay.
they might have better access. It's all hard copy.
Oh, okay.
Is the problem, but maybe Jeff has something in a digital file, but
I think that, well, yeah, there was the public hearing discussion, but then there was also the NOI with the Conservation Commission where
Yeah.
Emily, and I have Emily Stockman's reports from it, but I don't know that I have maps. Again, it would probably be in the Concom's folders
Mhm.
at Town Hall. But I'm sort of being Tessa for the next few weeks, so I don't want to take on digging for one other thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so
I'll try to find out.
why don't we, since Joseph, you're gonna have to check with the landowner. Maybe you can give me some possible dates and times. I'm guessing the app, like that 4 o'clock time may be a good time, Monday or Tuesday. If it doesn't coincide with 4th of July. At around 4 o'clock is probably a pretty safe time, I'm guessing.
I won't
Yeah,
be able
that
to
sounds
do.
good. And
Yeah.
And
just
then,
because I keep hearing folks saying they are trespassed, can I ask if the entire board is trespassed or are some of the members?
so
I am
clarify-
not
I
at
know who
all.
I can ask. and who-
So
We all are.
I'll just clarify, I was trespassed and I'm no longer trespassed. So I am allowed on Cole's property.
You
And
are?
what?
I'm surprised.
Yeah, I'm untrespassed, but there are a number of town officials as well as people in town who continue to be trespassed.
Yeah, I'm on the planning board. I'm trespassed.
He was on the select board too.
Yeah.
So
It speaks to the dynamic of the development.
The relationship.
anyway, I think everybody in here agrees that we want to see wildlife habitat being protected. So that's something we all share passion about, which is great. And so thanks folks for coming and talking. So Joseph, I'll leave it. And just for clarification, if we determine that it's within a buffer zone, then an RDA would be required. Is that correct, Mark? If it's the town bylaw buffer zone?
I cannot give an opinion on a town bylaw.
I would
Not
say,
allowed to.
yeah,
Okay.
if you're, I would say, even though technically I know the bylaw says that anything within 100 feet needs a notice of intent, I think that I think you probably have some flexibility on still just doing a request for determination, at least initially, if there's not very much likelihood of impact anyway.
Yeah, we don't want to jam. I
Yeah.
mean, our intention is not to jam this project up. It's just to kind of do our due diligence, really, I think is kind of where we're all coming from. So, we just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted. But it's.
Yeah, just for full transparency, materials were delivered there today
Yes.
in light of
We
this,
heard.
prior to this meeting. So there are materials on site, but when you contacted us and asked us to cease all work, that's exactly what we did. We haven't, conducted any work on the site. So we'll continue to hold off our work. We're going to have to cancel. We have boulders that are inbound as of tomorrow. That we'll have to work around with Jen here to figure out if we can find an alternate location to store those until we can hear back from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it would have been great if we had been given a heads up about this a little earlier, and then maybe we could have avoided the delays. But let's just try to do this as quickly as we can. If you can check with the landowner, if we're doing a site visit on Monday at 4, is it a possibility that we could come around and do this at like 4:30? If it worked with the landowner?
I don't think we can, I wouldn't be able to do that on Monday.
Oh, you wouldn't? Okay.
Yeah. But if you said Tuesdays and Thursday, what were the dates you said?
I was thinking of Monday or Tuesday.
I can look into Tuesday and we can try to put that together.
Would that work for Mary and Jen, Robin?
Yes.
Yeah,
Day at 4? Janice?
For this coming Tuesday, I can get out of work for a while for that, but normally Tuesdays are the worst day for
I
me.
know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and Don, you can do it, right?
I'm always available. I'm in the neighborhood.
Good.
Not always. Okay, all right, let's move on. All right, thank you, Joseph and Jennifer. Thank you for coming and your patience with us, this process. We appreciate it.
Yeah, would there be a way for me to supply you my contact information too? So if
Yeah, when you just
you get a
send
chance
that,
to speak here tonight, they can
why don't
contact
you
us.
just email me? I think I probably have it because you've emailed me, but if you want to just send it to the email you have. That'd be
Thanks so
great.
much. It was nice meeting you all.
All right, thank
Bye.
you.
I'm here.
Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Okay.
it's 8:34. I'm thinking that some of the other items we have on our agenda could probably be postponed. But I know that we have a potential new commissioner here. So I just wanted to take a few minutes
Oh.
and let Scott introduce himself and have a conversation with us.
Yeah, hey there, everyone. Thanks for letting me join your meeting. My name is Scott Kahn. I've lived in town here for the last 10 years. Thanks for letting me join your meeting.
Mhm.
Welcome.
It's not usually so crazy.
But it may be for a while.
It may be crazy for a little while. I just became the chair last week and our land use clerk quit and we're hiring a new one. So things are just in transition.
What is Scott Kahn's role again? He's the conservation commissioner?
Scott is applying to be a commissioner possibly.
So I live here in town. I've lived here for the last 10 years with my family. Professionally, I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I serve as the chief of the National Wildlife Refuge System. So I oversee all the national wildlife refuges from Maine down to Virginia. I've worked for the service for 32 years, and I love my job. I love what I do. I love conservation. That's why I love living in Shutesbury. Most of the work that I do professionally is really large scale, and thinking about conservation really across the entire Northeast landscape. And so this was interesting, to think about working more locally here at kind of the town level and being more involved in kind of our work here locally. And anyway, so I appreciate the opportunity to join the meeting here to get a sense for the important work that you all are doing. And yeah,
A lot of times for us, it comes down to one little wetland that we're protecting.
Well, yeah, it reminds me a lot of, I've done a lot of work in, I really was a field biologist for most of my career, and worked really at that more local scale and kind of wetland by wetland, and did a lot of wetland restoration work. A little bit about me. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I was born in Concord, lived in Acton and Bolton, which are in central Mass. Went to college out in Colorado, at Colorado State. I'm a wildlife biology major by training. Started working for the Fish and Wildlife Service, as I said, 32 years ago. I've worked all over the country in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, out in Colorado, doing shorebird research in Kansas. Got married. My wife said, they move you all across, all for the country here. The Fish and Wildlife Service, I'll follow you anywhere you want to go. Just don't take me to North Dakota. And so we were transferred to North Dakota right after that. And I worked in the Dakotas for, about 15, 20 years, and Minnesota as well. And then came back here to Massachusetts a decade ago. And, the only pause that I have in working here with all of you is I have a pretty hectic travel schedule. I work. You know, as I said, I have 75 different refuges spread over 13 states, and we also oversee the Marine Monument here for the Canyons and Seamounts Refuge, which is the Marine Monument that's 200 miles offshore here of Cape Cod. And so I travel a lot, and I'm gone about a quarter of the time or so. And so, you know, site visits and meetings and all of that are hectic with my job, but I'm certainly very interested in the work that you all do.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. The way our schedule works is in the winter for a few months, we meet once a month. Thursday night, 7 o'clock. It's pretty like written in stone. And there's not a lot of site visits happening in the winter because there aren't, mostly, you know, building permits, and there isn't a lot of development projects going on. Though this year, because of these ANRADs for these solar projects, we've been a lot busier than I think we ordinarily would have been. So this has not been a normal situation, and it will change, I think, in the coming year. And then during the warm season, we meet twice a month, and because things are busier, people have building permits, they're putting in new septic systems, new wells, things like that. And I don't know how this would work for you, Scott. I mean, we've done, I think, site visits on weekends at times, so we can be flexible. Would there ever be a possibility when you're traveling for you to join by Zoom a meeting?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, I certainly, I really don't know what the future of work for me looks like here after the pandemic. We're working here from my basement and have been for the last year. So yeah, certainly I think the opportunity to join via Zoom opens up a lot of other potential, especially if I'm out of state.
Yeah, because even if we go back to having in-person meetings, I think that the town has been talking about this idea of a hybrid options. And I even I think we could accommodate having having somebody participating remotely on a laptop or something.
Yep.
So if you're committed to that, and I think we could work with it. So our process usually is that we ask people to come to 2 or 3 meetings, just so you really get a feel for it, make sure you know what you're getting into, and then we would send an endorsement to the select board. They make the appointment, and then you're good to go, pretty much. You have to do some ethics paperwork and stuff, but and some paperwork with the town clerk, but that's pretty minimal.
That sounds good. I could maybe attend the next few meetings. I too have to get ethics clearance if I'm for any outside participant,
Okay.
just to make sure that there's not, if I were to be referred, but just to make sure there's not a conflict.
Right.
The work
Right,
that
there
we
was
do,
something
the Fish and Wildlife
federal.
Service and the work of the Concom. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and, if you're interested, go ahead and get that feedback from your employer. And we're going to be meeting on the 10th or the 8th, I think. Help me out, somebody. When is the next?
8th, I think.
The 8th. So Thursday night, the 8th at 7 o'clock. So join us.
That would be great. Hey, Marion, before we go, the other commissioners, I don't think I've had a chance to.
Oh, yeah. Everybody.
Oh,
I talked to you a little bit, but the others.
A little bit, Marion, but it would be nice to have just a quick introduction here to Mary and to Robin.
Okay, I'll go. Robin Harrington. We moved to Shutesbury in 1998. I worked at UMass for a while, was a high school teacher. Before, I've worked with coastal wetlands, salt marshes, and Woods Hole after I graduated from college. But mostly did work with invasive plant species at UMass, but I'm excited to be working related to wetlands again. So it's pretty fun. And I retired a couple of years ago, so I wanted to kind of give back to the community. So that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Robin. Nice to meet you.
And I'm Mary David. My family, but I live on shore drive right on Lake Wyola. And my family bought the cabin here in the 1880s. And over time, I've rebuilt it to a year-round house and have now retired here. My background is I'm a nurse, so this is all new to me. But I'm retired, and the same thing. I have a vested interest in protecting the environment, and wanted to give back to the town and join the committee to be able to get to know people and know the community and work on helping with preservation of the environment.
Thank you, Mary. Very nice to meet you.
So a couple of other people here. Mark Stinson is our circuit rider with Mass DEP, and is kind of the person who helps us stay on the right path. And then we have a couple of other local people who are not on the commission, but have a lot of knowledge that have been coming to a lot of meetings. Don Walkluck is the tree warden and is a biologist and with wetlands experience. And Janice Stone, who signed off, or is Janice not
No,
here?
I'm still here.
But Janice still here, is also a wetland scientist who lives locally, so.
Worked for Fish and Wildlife Service for a few years too.
Oh, where did you work, Janice?
Minnesota, Minneapolis.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
I worked in Minnesota for in Detroit Lakes in the wetland district.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Small world.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet all of you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming,
Thank you.
Scott. And I'm excited that you're interested. I think you'd be great.
Me
to have
too.
on it. Would be helpful to have some folks like you. So please come back.
I will.
I hope we didn't scare you off.
You didn't scare me off. I've been a part of government for over 30 years.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's move on. I'm trying to take a look at the agenda if there's anything urgent that we need to take care of. Let me take a look and help me out, anybody, if you're looking.
What about the annual report? What's with
the
that?
annual
Wasn't that done
report,
already?
It's not done yet. I think that Robin was going to be working on it, right?
Yes, I've met with Tessa. There's a draft started, and I met with Penny today doing some planting at that new park north of the lake.
Oh, good.
And we have a plan to get together next week so she can read over the rest of my draft and sort of kind of help me put it together since she wrote the last several. So,
Great.
So we're getting there.
Great.
Well, you know, on the Historical Commission, we have sometimes been 6 months late with our annual reports. So you're doing great.
I was informed by Tessa that it's actually due in December because I was panicking. I said, there's no way this is going to be done by the last day of June. She goes, it's not actually due until December. I said, oh, I can certainly get it by early July.
Yeah.
Said, oh, okay, fine.
Great. Even better.
So I can do a 2-minute on Lake Wyola. I really just wanted to
and
tell
I
everybody.
think, I think that we should take a few minutes to talk to Don about his letter.
Okay, nope,
Yes.
that's fine.
Go ahead, Mary.
So the Lake Wyola really is just, it goes back to the comments we've had meeting with the roads and the flooding and everything that goes on. And we've gotten 2 notices. The Lake Wyola Advisory Committee has also been working on this. The Lake Wyola Association has a road committee that has a whole plan they're working on. So I'm just really, on behalf of the commission, going to send them the information we have and suggest that the 3 committees work together to keep communication going and help develop a plan. So
that's great. I was surprised when I was looking through the Concom inbox that we had received these letters from the advisory committee that had been sent to the select board. I guess Michael's not there anymore. That the advisory committee had been asking the select board to establish a special committee, and they declined to do that.
yeah, and I think some of that was a misunderstanding about whether we were asking for them to pay for the work to be done.
Mhm.
So there was going to be a second letter to clarify that we really just want to look at everything and come up with a plan rather than all these different people coming up with different plans. So,
Yeah.
so I'm on that committee now, and I'll work with them, and I'll copy everybody when I send out the information.
It's, that sounds like a good step. It's so complicated.
Yes, but we'll get it.
All right. So Don, should we talk about your letter?
So I sent you guys a letter just this week, just the other day. After it came to my attention while at work, I work in Wendell State Forest as a park ranger for DCR. And I was contacted by someone at Lake Wyola who used to be a U.S. Fish and Wildlife agent. And he explained to me that the addling permit that you guys sort of were made aware of and sort of signed off on through Mass Wildlife and was being issued, I believe, through DCR for Lake Wyola.
Mhm.
You may remember that I voiced some concerns that it was well past the time that addling could be done. Addling is when you take eggs from a nest, from a goose nest, and early on after they've just been laid, usually this is sometime in the spring, and you shake them up and they don't hatch. And that's a method of controlling resident goose populations. There already is a preferred method for controlling resident geese, and that's through the early hunting season that takes place in September. Except that those are amalgamated flocks. Those are giant flocks like what you would see at UMass or down at the Hadley cornfields, where you see many, many hundreds of geese all together, congregating just prior to their fall migration. That is the preferred method. Unfortunately, I believe it was Animal Damage Control decided on their own without consulting any of us, or in fact, the Concom, after being issued this permit, to go out and remove 16 geese by shotgun. They did this during the day when there were small children on the beach. And I find this abhorrent that they would do this practice at that particular time of day with such a callous way. But what I think doesn't really matter here. Were any laws broken? There is an active eagle nest. Mary, please tell me that the eagle has not left the nest now.
No, they have not. They have not. They are still there.
I don't know if they have fledged young yet or not.
No.
This may be a very young couple. I don't think that they've actually laid eggs this year. At least that's the word I've heard. I haven't personally, I've seen the eagles. I just haven't seen the nest site. It's closer to that town beach where the boat launch is.
Yeah, supposedly there's 2 eggs in the nest. I haven't heard that they've hatched, but.
So, shooting off a shotgun, on the lake itself, was not exactly a good idea. Shooting goslings and geese in front of children, well, there's just no excuse for that type of behavior. I would recommend to the commission that.
Don, can I ask you, do we know for sure that it was done in a location where people on the beach could see it?
I understood it to have taken place on the water. That's the visual report that I got, that they could see it from the beach.
Okay.
Could kids know what was going on? I think that's irrelevant at this point. It's terrible, but it's irrelevant.
Okay.
I think the more important point is that the chief of police, our officer in charge, Burgess, has suggested that you guys work with her to develop a protocol for this. There really is no acceptable time for the use of shotguns on that lake. And we have established resident goose shotgun season in the fall that takes place off-site. There really is no need anymore for addling. If there ever was a reason for it, Perhaps it was with DCR and failed water tests at the state beach, but those really have nothing to do with the geese. Those have more to do with septic systems and rain events on the lake. But
Don-
I sort of spoke of all this in the letter.
Don, I mean, we didn't approve the permit. It was just, we were just noticed on it. I
Right,
think.
exactly. Like the same way that you're noticed for timber harvest plans. You're not really allowed to stop them or object to them or.
Actually, that's not true at all.
Really?
You're saying that wetlands takes
That's not
precedence.
true at all. The commission's job is to review forest cutting plans for various reasons. They can comment on it directly to the DCR service forester. It's not just, oh, here it is and file it.
Well, that's been a bone of contention in the past in this particular town with this particular commission, not with these members, but in the past with previous commissions.
Yeah.
DCR service foresters have basically said that the Forest Cutting Act takes precedence to the Wetlands Act. I object to that idea.
It's
Well, I
considered an
object to that
agriculturally
idea.
exempt project.
I just find that agricultural exemption is a different subject than what we're talking about
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Well, you brought it up. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying
You're
to
right,
explain,
you're right.
you were wrong in terms of the commission's job is to review, and if the commission has concerns, they go directly to the DCR service forester. They can also stop work if the forest cutting is violating the Forest Cutting Practices Act. That negates the forestry exemption, so the commission still should be totally involved with forest cutting plans.
So in this particular case, what we're talking about is an addling permit that was
Right.
issued by Mass Wildlife.
Right, which
And-
the Conservation Commission and DEP have no jurisdiction over.
Right.
So the
So,
permit was actually requested by the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee.
oh, it was?
And that's who put in the I guess has put in the application all these years. I did put in a call to Mark to find out what the history is, so he hasn't called me back yet.
Mark Rivers was one of the people involved, I think, right?
Yeah, he's the chairperson of the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee. And
No, I think he was involved with the permit, yeah.
yeah, and I heard about the permit on the committee, but I didn't hear anything about this, so I don't know what he does or doesn't know. And also, to my knowledge, the idea that this has happened the last 4 years in a row, and that's not to my knowledge, but I'm gonna check on that with him too. 'Cause
Yeah, well,
I mean, I heard the shotguns going off and I wondered who was firing. I mean, it really is, it's an area that's heavily populated. That state beach is very occupied. You know, I don't know who gave somebody permission to shoot at anything when there's so many people around.
Well,
I have some
maybe,
questions.
so maybe that would be great if you could have that conversation with Mark and report back to us. I guess it sounds like, you know, we don't have jurisdiction over whether permits are granted or not, but perhaps we could come up to get an agreement with the Lake Wyola Advisory Committee and whoever's getting those permits that they will
Well, it sounded like the
change their
committee,
practices.
somebody had permission to apply for the permit to do it. So I'll find out some more information.
So the permit that was applied for was an addling permit.
That's correct. It wasn't to shoot.
It
birds.
wasn't to shoot birds. And even with that aside, my concern was that it was taking place within 100 feet or so of an active eagle nest.
Correct.
And again, I don't know, I'm not clear about this, but that seems to be something that Natural Heritage would want to be aware of. And I don't believe they were ever notified.
So is it legal to be shooting a gun and shooting at geese off season in that area?
Well, I mean, it depends on who did the shooting. If it was animal damage control through the USDA, I imagine they have jurisdiction to do such a thing. But if it was some private group or DCR in some way that was doing it, my supervisors had no knowledge of this. Officer Burgess claims that she spoke to a superior at DCR who told her they were fully aware of this. Had anyone been aware of this? And Becky Torres, town administrator, tells us that she has known about this for 4 years. I just don't know what to say to that. And I'm not going to tell the commission what you should do. My advice is that you pursue a new policy with a new chief of police, and let the commission work together with the chief to develop a policy that works for everyone. I understand the need to control problem geese. What I don't understand is the methods by which were used and the endangering of the eagle nest. That kind of bothers me a little bit.
I would suggest a better methodology is to work directly, is the town chief of police or Becky to work directly with the environmental police. Conservation Commission, I fail to see where there's any jurisdiction over any of this.
So I guess that the environmental police would be the correct law enforcement officials to speak to.
Well, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure that they have a policy on this as well. And perhaps that's who to speak to. The commission here, the only reason I contacted you is because it was reported to me, and they were questioning why the commission would approve a permit to do this. And I explained that that was not what the permit was for.
The permit is at town hall, and I'll be going into town hall in the next day or two. Well, tomorrow's Friday, right? Well, by Monday, and I can look up who got the permit. I can let you know that, Mary, if that's helpful.
No, like I said, I think I'm marked, it's in the minutes from Lake Wyola, but I'll get in touch with him and then see. I don't want to redo it. He's already been acting on this. So let me see what he's done with it.
Okay.
And I certainly don't want to infer that the Concom has a responsibility here. All I was suggesting was that you were the only contact in town that knew of this permit. And it seemed that the town administrator didn't come forward with her knowledge until I confronted her about it at the select board meeting.
Yeah.
So
I mean, at the very least, we could, once we gather more information, I think we're not ready to do this. We could write a letter, to whoever had the permit and say what our preferences would be. And, we don't have the right to decide what the state permit allows. But if they're doing something outside of what was permitted, that sounds like that's an environmental police issue.
Well, thank you for
that makes sense
for listening to my.
Yeah, if you get more information, John, feel free to share.
I'm following up with my supervisors.
That's great.
Okay, thank you.
Yikes. And also, just to follow up, because you mentioned testing, water quality testing, and I checked with the Board of Health, and they are coordinating with the Lake Wyola Association. The association tests water, twice a week? Is that right, Mary?
Yeah, I forget what they do, but there's ongoing testing of the water here.
They're doing ongoing testing. They share those test results with the Board of Health. The Board of Health has a plan and money put aside so that if they see rising bacteria counts, then they will do their own testing.
And they're supposed to start posting on the beaches what the counts are, so.
Oh, is that what they're going to do? Because I understand the state is not sharing the test data with the Board of Health, which I don't really understand. That seems mysteriously confusing to me why they wouldn't be sharing, but if it's being posted on the beach, then I guess anybody can.
Well, the Board of Health wants to post on the beaches just so, because last year when there was an issue, everybody didn't know.
Yeah.
And they asked things, so I guess it is part of posting. They plan on posting on the beach too.
Yeah.
So we do need to go back and post.
Pass on that information.
Okay.
Approve the minutes too.
Okay. All right. So I think we should be wrapping up. It's 9. Do you want to do the minutes for June 10th? Do you want to wait and do it at our next meeting? If you're all tired, we started late.
We have
I mean, they were pretty straightforward. I found a typo, but other than that, I think
I
they're
don't-
fine.
found the typo too, which was Donna West's name in the
All right, let me
meeting, so.
see if I can pull them up. Where'd they go? Give me 1 sec. Not in the right folder. Conservation Commission minutes, June 10th. And I don't have those. Wrong folder. Draft. Okay, here they are. I'm pulling it up. I think I can make the amendments. So where are the typos?
Page 2, third line, it says the Department of Environmental protects.
Okay, protection.
And that was the only thing I found. I mean, everything else I remember happening and seemed
Okay.
pretty accurate.
And mine was just in the, under guest, it says Dina West, it should be Donna West
Okay,
on the very top of the first page.
yep. Anything else?
Nope. So I make a motion to approve the minutes
Great.
with the 2 corrections added.
I'll second. Okay, David,
Aye.
Stefan, I. And Harrington.
I
Thank you. Just an update about the land use clerk. There have been a couple of applications. They extended the ad to tomorrow to see if they would get any more applications. And then next week, Becky Torres is going to share those resumes with me. I guess the applicants get interviewed by the chairs of the 3 boards. I'll share the resumes with you guys, see if
Okay.
you have any feedback. And I'll let you know when we're going to be doing the interviews. I'm worried about the transition because we're not going to have somebody training the person in.
Oh, good point.
Good point. And I feel like I'm happy to struggle on with that person and help them as much as I can. I wish we had an experienced land use clerk working with them.
Do you think Linda might be able to help, or we could pay her somehow?
I've suggested that and didn't get any response, unfortunately.
That would be good. Yeah.
I know.
Man.
Oh,
It's-
don't
it's-
forget about me. I've trained more Concom agents than
Good,
anybody
Mark.
else.
Okay, well, we're
Excellent.
counting on that. We're counting on that, Mark.
Good.
We're going to need that because we also need the support from you. So that's
Yeah,
great.
one of the reasons I wanted to stop by, I knew Tessa was gone. And I know that, you know, you don't have the 20 years worth of experience that some of the other former members had. So I just want to make sure you guys know I'm here. If you have any regulatory questions, I can answer. That's
Thank
kind of why I wanted to get into that question on the addling the eggs. You know, you guys already have so much to do. If you start getting off track away from wetlands protection, you're stretching yourselves too thin. You can't focus on what your primary role is to protect the resource areas. That has nothing to do with goose eggs.
Right. Well, we are stretched really thin, and we do have. There's a lot of issues going on, including issues with, like, Mark, you weren't at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago. I can't remember when it was kind of a riot around
Why,
Lake
what
Arroyo.
happened?
Well, there was somebody who had made a complaint and shared video footage of contamination, sediment contamination, flooding Lake Wyola illegally through
Ooh.
drainage pipes.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And so they sent this video footage, and then there was some representatives from the Lake Wyola Association who came, and there was a lot of discussion about why laws need to be followed.
Okay, but you guys took care of it?
Oh, we've got it all taken care of.
Okay, good.
Good. One down.
Mary's taking care of it. Mary David is doing all
Oh,
of it.
good.
We're all set.
Okay, good.
She lives on Lake Wyola, so, that's
Years of the commission, Mary.
that's very brave.
Yeah.
All right, I don't see anything else that as urgent. I think at least through July, we're gonna continue to be able to meet through Zoom. I think their town select board is trying to decide whether they're gonna go to some sort of hybrid model, which I don't really understand. I think we're gonna be ending up using Zoom for the foreseeable future is what I think is gonna happen.
I just did a hybrid meeting with Town of Brimfield Conservation Commission. Most of the members were in town hall, but they also had a laptop and people could chime in and partake of things. So it can work as long as you have it set up right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other issue is the space that we have available because the conservation.
Downstairs probably, right?
Maybe downstairs where there's,
Yeah.
or outside. I don't know how that would work. But anyway, no decisions have been made at this point, as far as I'm aware. All right, so let's adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:09. Got a second?
I second the motion to adjourn.
Okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont, aye, Harrington.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody, and good
Thank you.
night.
You did great.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Nice
All
meeting
right,
you,
bye.
Scott.
Night, good night.